For years I had a caller named Jimmy from WOR, and we let him on reluctantly sometimes because Jimmy sounded, Jimmy, if you're listening, you were so far ahead of the average listener that people could laugh at you, which is typical of what the country does to people who are smarter than them. But Jimmy would say things going back at least 10 years that come back now to haunt me. Jimmy would say things such as this entire Islamic uprising around the world is being orchestrated by the ex-Soviet Union, KGB. They're behind it. They're doing it to suck our military dry, to destabilize us, to break our economy. The Cold War never ended. It just changed form. And I said, come on, Jimmy, that's crazy. You know, Jimmy, maybe it isn't so crazy, Jimmy. Maybe it isn't so crazy, Jimmy. What's going on here, Jimmy? Well, maybe Jimmy will call us and give us his new update. Jimmy in New York, WOR, go ahead, please.
I really appreciate your what you've said about me and the caller that said about me. I've been studying this for many years. Let me tell you, the American Communist Press years ago, for many decades, was saying they want to defund the American military. And they talked about the way to do it is you put government jobs and job programs and government health care. That's going to cost so much. The only place to cut is the U.S. military budget. And that's what's happening now. The same Communist Press talked about they want to put U.S. automobile industry out of business by high prices and high cost. They don't want it privately run. Then when it goes out of business, it'll be government run and worker controlled. And that's kind of been achieved now. So the enemy makes long-range plans, and they stick to it. They have minor setbacks here and there, just like if we defeat Obama in the next election, that does not...
So how can Obama get away with taking apart our nuclear arsenal and NASA all in 1 week, and there's no outcry across the land? How is that possible?
Because the KGB told us we won the Cold War, and that put everybody to sleep to the Marxist revolution. And people just don't want to believe the horrible. He seems like a nice man. He's got two of the most sweetest-looking children.
All right, Jimmy, stay on the line because I think this is going to become your moment on the Savage Nation. Let's go back to Jimmy in New York. Jimmy, go ahead, please. So you've been alleging for years now. I think you used to call my show when I was a local talk show. No, when I first became a national show host in 2000. And you were saying that all of this Islamic terrorism was being run by the KGB. Wasn't that your allegation?
Most of it, yes. Most of it. We know that Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, one of the top terror leaders in Afghanistan now, was a Soviet agent, and he got the bulk of the CIA aid during the Afghan-Soviet war. The Soviet press, there's an interview with the leader of the Communist Party of Lebanon, and they take credit for chasing the U.S. Marines out of Lebanon when we hear it was the Muslim terror bombing of the Marine barracks. It's the Soviet hand in the Muslim glove. The same way the communists penetrated Christianity, that's liberation theology. Most people now know liberation theology. Well, the same way communists penetrated the Christian religion, they penetrated Islam. They find the most radical, crazy strain and promote it against the West. The goal is to bypass mutual assured destruction. If Russia can't shoot us, we can't shoot them. Therefore, their weapons are neutralized. But if they could put their weapons in other countries, well, that's mutual assured destruction too. Well, no, not if that country is run by a suicide bomber type. The Soviets are outplaying us. They had a bad hand because their economy was weak. So they faked the collapse, and they made capitalism then have to rebuild their economy. And if it doesn't work, capitalism's discredited. But at the same time, under the guise of collapse, they claim they're losing their nukes. They claim they're losing their nuclear scientists. Well, they're not losing them to Japan. They're losing them to the radical Muslim states. It's a trick. I said it before it happened. It's obvious if you study it.
All right, so Jimmy, let's say you were a man ahead of your time in your thinking, and I know you call many talk shows. I hope they're aware of how smart you really are and how far-seeing. Let's go down this road together. Russia has just decided to help Iran. China has just decided to send oil to Iran. That means Israel's out and Iran is in. Is that correct?
Right. And remember, it was communists who helped topple the Shah. It wasn't just the people in Iran who wanted the Shah out. The Soviets targeted him, and the Shah himself, when he was still in power, warned about the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington working to topple him. That is an extremely powerful KGB front group that's dismantling us because they influence our media, they influence our politicians. The House Progressive Caucus is like the political arm of the Institute for Policy Studies. They have meetings, they have connections.
Who was in the House Progressive Caucus? Barbara Lee, of course. Who else?
Pelosi was one of the leaders. So a lot of people...
Pelosi, who took a wonderful private healthcare system and made it into a public system, more or less, a government-run one. How come she has nothing to say about the privatization of NASA?
Who knows? She maybe is saying something. But remember, too, that Marxist Congresswoman Maxine Waters wanted to nationalize our energy industry. Socialize.
All right, so let's go. Let's start at the crux of the entire world right now, which is Israel. Whether people know it or not, Israel is at the crossroads of the future of the world. That is both biblically and politically true. What's going to happen in the Middle East, in your opinion?
Well, America is always the ultimate target. Israel looks like the target now, but remember, Israel, according to the radical Muslims, is the little Satan. America's the big Satan, just like the Soviets referred to America as enemy number one. I've suggested some things that could happen. The Soviets or the Muslim terror could lure hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops there, and then they could be slaughtered with weapons of mass destruction. That didn't happen in Iraq, but that's something still potential. America's the target, not Israel. Remember,
well, I know who the target is, but what do you think will happen with regard to Israel? Israel could defy all of the world order, could it not?
I think they have to. I really think they have to. Somebody has to stop. Iran has to be stopped, their nuclear program. But it's also, if we stop it, we still have to know who is behind it and what the goals were.
Why would Russia and China back Iran? What did they gain by backing Iran?
Well, they gain in the third world. They look like they're helping the non-whites against the white capitalists. They also look like they're helping the third world. And they have long-term connections, the communists. Russia and China are partners. There has been no real split. After Stalin died, that split was healed. They kept the illusion of a split, so they have a two-way to have war against us, and we don't understand it. And they're working with radical Islam. The same way they got into Christianity.
But do you actually believe Obama's a secret plant, sort of the secret agent, the sleeper? What do you actually think?
Well, it's really not too secret, but see, at one time, the communist movement was a party movement. Everybody was somewhere connected to the party and somehow. Today, the movement is so huge, you don't have to be connected knowingly to any Communist Party member. There's millions and millions of Marxists now because they were being brainwashed in schools, unopposed, very few people. David Horowitz was trying to point that out, a few people here and there. I mean, they have Marxist scholars conferences, socialist world scholars conferences. These people meet, they strategize, they coordinate, and they're all going in the same direction.
So are you saying we're finished? Are you saying they won and it's over, the chess game's over?